Hey everyone, it is Brenna and I am back for our final video in this series on using tips and tricks from the field of user experience to develop effective data visualizations. And in this video, we are going to be focusing on the third letter in our AIM acronym, what we're aiming our visualizations to look like, and that M stands for memorable. So we'll be talking all about how to develop memorable visualizations. So when we talk about this idea of memorable visualizations, really what we're getting at is the idea that we're creating some sort of impact on our readers, our stakeholders, our audience, and then that impact is hopefully a lasting one where maybe they'll go back to their office and talk to their colleagues and, maybe remember a week or two later something that you displayed in your visualization or some main statistic that you maybe had displayed in a visualization in your report. So hopefully that information will be transferred to others, maybe throughout a conversation with their colleagues, some sort of plan or idea comes about to implement this information you displayed, and then the next thing you know, your data is being implemented in a much larger way than, let's say, that data visualization wasn't memorable, that person didn't remember it a few weeks later, didn't talk to others about it. And so I think this kind of just highlights how important it is to focus on our data visualizations and making sure they're very memorable and incorporating specific design aspects and elements to make sure that that is occurring with our visualizations. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. 3 main takeaways from the research that you can implement into your own visualizations on how to make them more memorable. And so the first main takeaway is that really, the simpler your visualization, the simpler your report, that's going to be better and increase the memorability of that information. So really, what is a good rule of thumb here is just include a few easy to understand visualizations in a report that maybe just focus on a few main trends or themes. And that is a lot easier to remember than maybe, let's say, a report where you have 70 different visualizations and every visualization has a different main takeaway and you think all 70 points are really, really important. And they might be, but that is really hard for your brain to kind of wrap all that information up into your brain and then remember it a couple weeks later. It's just really difficult to do. So just focus when you're writing that report, what are the main, maybe 5 takeaways that you want the reader to remember? Also, one thing that I think is really important to focus on in this finding that researchers found, something I need to work on too, is that repeating information throughout your report increases the memorability of that data. And so if you have maybe, let's say at the beginning of your report, your 5 main findings, some visualizations throughout your report of the main findings, and then at the conclusion, you repeat those same 5 main findings, that's actually, by the researchers' suggestion, better than just having maybe those main findings reported maybe just once or twice in the report. And I think this is something sometimes we can get a little bit caught up on as data communicators, is you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be repeating myself so much, or, oh, I already said this in a graph or chart. I don't think I should put another graph or chart in there that's communicating the same takeaway finding or the same data. But actually, research shows that this is better for memorability and increases the chances that a few weeks later, someone is going to remember one of those key takeaways in your visualizations that you showed. Another finding from research shows that colors and icons can be used to your advantage in your visualizations to increase the memorability. And if done correctly, it can kind of cue your readers into looking at the most important information or remembering some sort of main takeaway. So for example, I created a graph on the screen here, and you can see this is just fictitious data of ages of students surveyed on a campus. What is their age? And probably your eye was drawn to that age 21 first, because I changed it to a different color of a darker blue. And so that message kind of is conveyed then of, hey, pay attention to this 21 years, that's important, and 35% of our respondents were 21. By using that darker color, that message is then maybe more memorable. Someone might remember that a few weeks later of that statistic. And this would be really important, let's say, if the report focused on maybe the legal age of college drinking on campuses. So we would definitely want to highlight that age 21 statistic. Another thing I added here where you can see the drink icons, and that is up above the 21, 22, and 23 plus years bars. And that indicates, let's say in this report, again, we're focusing on legal age of drinking of students. That's kind of a cue to the reader of, okay, this is important. I should somehow be focusing on drinking aspects of our students 21 and plus. And hopefully that information will then be more memorable to our audience rather than if we just had a normal bar chart without any drink symbols, no icons, no cues to kind of give away what our main takeaway was, or maybe how we were trying to relate this data to the overall theme or message of our report. So those are maybe some tips that you can incorporate into your own practice or your next visualization that you create as well. And then finally, the third main takeaway from the research looks at embellished charts. Now, if you watched the video before this might look familiar because we talked about it as embellished charts being more intriguing than normal charts, but they're also more memorable. So you'll notice that the chart on the right, that's an example of an embellished chart because it includes some sort of icon or symbol instead of just your plain bars in a bar chart. So people were in a research study given the option to look at this plain bar chart that we see on the left and then the embellished chart on the right. And then they were kind of interviewed afterwards in some different data collection were done during the study. And what researchers found in the study were that the embellished visualizations actually people were able to recall the information better than just the normal bar chart. They had an increased accuracy of this information, so they remembered things more accurately than just a normal bar chart. And also they did this in a shorter time span compared to just our normal bar chart data visualizations. So this might be something you would want to incorporate into your report. Let's say if there is just one main finding that you think is super important for your stakeholders, your audience to remember, you could use the use of an embellished chart in your favor, and that way you could potentially increase the memorability of that information by just enhancing your visualization a little more, hopefully making sure that that information is more memorable. So that does bring us to the conclusion of this video series on using tips and tricks from the field of user experience to our data visualizations. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you had a few takeaways that you could incorporate into your own data visualizations. And thank you so much for tuning in.